When the rain silences opens, what is reflected in the eyes is a wasteland, with cracked soil, sparse grass, and a round of strange purple moon hanging around the sky far away. He rubbed his eyes, and there was a numbness in his brain. What is this? Didn't I work overtime in the company? Why did I get to this ghost place in the blink of an eye? He looked down at himself, wearing a coarse linen, and holding a broken head in his hand, releasing the dress of an ancient farmer. Just as he was stunned, a low and warm voice suddenly echoed in the sea of brain, "Welcome to the extraordinary world, mortals. I am the farmer, and I will give you the power of blessings of the farmer. Everything you plant will mature in an instant and contain magical powers. I wish you to create your own garden legend here. Blessings of the god of agriculture? Instantly mature? The power of magic?" Yuze murmured. Although he was full of questions, he felt a sense of excitement in his heart. He was a 996 community animal in his previous life. He dreamed of escaping from the city every day, looking for a country to raise chickens, and living a leisurely life. Now, isn't this the opportunity given to God? He lowered his head and looked at the wasteland under his feet. Although it was broken, it was quite large, and it was quite a bit. There is also a dilapidated wooden cabin next to it, which looks like it is barely able to live in. Yuze grinned and patted the head of the hand. "Okay. From today on, I will be the owner of this land. Seed fields, nurses, and after leisurely days, who should not come to beat me?" He said he was fucked, and he found a small bag of unknown seeds next to the wooden house, and scattered them into the soil with his hands. Then, according to the guidance of the blessing of the agricultural god in the brain, he closed his eyes and said silently, "Grow up, my treasure." The next second, a miracle happened. The soil was slightly slim, and the seeds broke through the ground and sprouted at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few seconds, it grew into a green crop, which looked like some kind of herb. Each leaf emitted a faint blue light. This is too exaggerating. Yuze squatted down, took off a piece of leaves, and heard a little closer. He felt a little refreshed, and his whole feeling of fatigue dissipated a little. Is this thing a herb, right? And it also has magical effects? He was surprised when a rapid sound of footsteps came from a distance. Yuze looked up and saw a middle-aged man wearing broken leather armor running towards him, his face full of anxiety, running around and shouting, "Hey! New! What's going on in your field? Why did so many magic herbs suddenly grow?" Yuze was stunned, stood up, and slammed his head. What happened to me?" The middle-aged man ran to the front, panting, looking at Yuze up and down, his eyes filled with surprise. What a joke! This blue light herb is a middle-level magic material, and it will take at least 3 months to mature. You can get it done in just a few minutes?" Yuze smiled embarrassedly, unable to explain the blessings of the farm god, so he could only talk nonsense. "Maybe, the soil is more fertile, right?" The man clearly didn't believe it, but he didn't ask much, and introduced himself. "My name is Jiacheng, and he is the elder of the nearby village. This place was abandoned before, but I didn't expect you to be able to produce anything. But I have to remind you that there is no peace here, and there are often monsters that come out, so you have to be careful." "Monster?" Yuze's heart skipped a beat, and his brain filled with various monsters striking scenes. He asked quickly, "How dangerous is it? Will you run to my field?" Jiacheng glanced at the brow and said with a heavy voice, "It's hard to say. Recently, monster activities have become more and more frequent, and the village is almost overwhelming. Your field is not far away from the village, and when you are targeted by monsters, the consequences are unbelievable." Yuze heard it and felt a little scared, but after thinking about it, "I finally had to travel through this strange world, so how could I run away before I even started dreaming? No! This land is his root, he has to keep it. Thank you, Uncle Jiacheng. I'll be careful." Yuze said it, but his heart had already started to check how to guard against it. He glanced at the blue herbs in the field and said, "Yes, Uncle, can these herbs be sold? Or are there any uses?" Jiacheng's eyes lit up. "Of course. Blue grass is a good thing to cure injuries, and is commonly used by adventurers in the village. If you can sell it to the village, you will never have to worry about selling it. Okay. Then I'll have several batches. Yuze heard that there was a market and the sport was even more prosperous. In the next few hours, he relied on the blessing of the god of agriculture to build a green land, and various strange crops were planted with unscathed conditions. Some could restore their physical strength, and some could enhance their strength. It was simply a natural medicine library. Just as he was busy and sweating profusely, his head suddenly sounded click, as if he had hit something hard. Yuze was stunned, squatted down and pulled out the soil with his hands. He saw an ancient longsword buried in the soil. The sword was full of complex runes, emitting a faint blue light. What is this? Baoba? Yuze's heart beat faster and he carefully pulled out the sword. The body of the sword was just unearthed, and the entire field was covered with blue light, and even the forests far away were filled with uneasy restlessness. This drama is not simple. He held the handle and felt a warm force spreading his arms all over his body, as if he had established some kind of contact with this drama. But at the same time, a sense of anxiety arose in his heart, and he always felt that this would bring him trouble. Sure enough, not long after, a low roar came from the forest far away, and then several wolf-shaped monsters emerged from the forest, their eyes glowing red, and they rushed straight towards the fields. Damn it! It's really here! Yuze shivered in surprise, and the sword in his hand almost fell to the ground. Although he had the blessing of the god of agriculture, he never fought, let alone deal with this monster. The monsters were getting closer and closer. Yuze gritted his teeth, grabbed the bluegrass medicine that had just emerged from the fields, stuffed it into his mouth and chewed it for a few bites. In an instant, a clear force filled the whole body, and the fatigue just now disappeared, and even a little more force appeared in the arms. Fight! I finally have a lot of money, who shouldn't try to take it away? He held the sword in one hand and grabbed a handful of herbs in the other, and rushed forward to the monster. The first wolf-shaped monster Zhang Kai opened his bloody mouth and slashed the sword instinctively. Unexpectedly, the blue light on the sword's body flashed and it actually split the monster into 2.5, with blood all over the ground. So powerful? Yuze himself was stunned. He didn't expect that this broken sword was so powerful. Several other monsters saw each other and roared, and at the same time they came up. Although Yuze had no experience in fighting, he relied on the recovery effect of the blue light herb and the power of the brave sword, and even killed all the monsters in a few seconds. After the battle ended, Yuze sat on the field, panting, looking at the monsters on the ground, and the sword in his hand. All over his brain asked, "What is this sword? Why is it so harmful when you just swipe it?" At this time, Jiaqing hurriedly came with several villagers, and saw the monster corpses beside the field, and they were all stunned. A young villager couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh my god! This is a black fly wolf. At least it is a middle-level monster, a new one. You fucked it alone?" Yuze wiped his sweat and smiled reluctantly. "I'm very happy, I've been using the weapon that has been damaged." Jia Yan's eyes fell on the sword in Yuze's hand, and his face became solemn in an instant. "This sword, the blue light rune, the ancient breath, is it not the sword of the brave in the tradition?" "The brave sword?" Yuze was stunned and picked up the sword and looked at it. "What does it mean? Is this thing very famous?" Jia Xian took a deep breath and his words were low. "This is the saying that our village has passed away for thousands of years. It is said that the brave sword is a magical tool left by God, which can awaken the truth of the world, but at the same time it will attract no danger. Those who hold it must embark on a path full of trials." Yuze heard this and muttered in his heart, "Trying to have a wound? Danger? I just want to plant a field. Can this broken sword be thrown away?" Jiaqing shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid it won't work. Once the sword of the brave will be determined by you. You just used it to knock out the monster, and it has already been selected by it. Do you think you are going to choose?" Yuze was crying and felt that he had just fallen into pieces. After finally traveling through leisurely days, I dug out a handful of stinging machines. but you don't have to worry too much. Jia Xian patted his shoulder, his temperament calmed down. You have the talent of a field, and you can fight with the brave sword, or maybe this is the fate of fate. The village is being threatened by monsters recently. If you can help protect this place, we will fully support you. Yuze lowered his head and looked at the sword in his hand, and then at the green crops in the fields, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. He really just wanted to be a peaceful farmer, but looking at the villagers' expectant eyes, he knew that he might not be able to stay out of the matter. Okay. He sighed and reluctantly said, I will try it. But then, my main goal is still to grow fields. Whatever you can fight, you can get less. Jiaqing smiled and pointed, Don't worry, we won't be polite. The most important thing to be honest at the moment is to figure out why the sword of the brave appears in your fields. Tomorrow I will take you to the ancient library in the village and check the relevant records. Yuze whispered, thinking in his heart how to hold the fields without being dragged into greater trouble. He looked at the forest far away and felt that the adventure of this strange world had just begun. This chapter is over, about 3,800 words. The next morning, Yuze crawled out of the wooden house with a pair of dark circles on his face, holding the sword of the brave who was radiating blue light in his hand. Last night, he turned and couldn't sleep. His brains were all the trial and danger that Jiaxin said, and he regretted why he had to dig out this thing. Good morning, New. Jia Yan's voice came from afar. Yuze looked up and saw the old man walking towards him with a young man. The man was tall, wearing a light leather armor, and a wide-bladed sword was hanging on his back, and his body was filled with a bad temper. This is Choi Hao, the most dangerous adventurer in the village. Jia Xian introduced, patting Choi Hao on the shoulder. He heard about you and was willing to go with you to check the secrets of the warriors. Choi Hao glanced at Yuze. His eyes were as sharp as a knife, and his voice was low. I heard that you had fucked a few black fly wolves alone. That's right. However, forest storms are not something you can do, you'd better not drag your back. Yuze choked at this straightforward words and smiled embarrassedly. Don't worry, although I'm not good at fighting for a long time, I can at least take care of myself. He said in his heart, at worst, it's hard to rely on herbs to force it, so it won't really drag your back legs. The charity point is the head of the head, and the linguistic lingering, there are records in the ancient library in the village. The sword of the brave was once sealed in a desert deep in the forest. The place was very dangerous, with monsters and magic traps everywhere. You must act carefully, and if you find the rope, go back, don't be too hard. I understand. Choi Hao responded and turned to Yuze, pack up your things and set off now. The monsters in the forest are more alive at night, so we have to go to the Desheng entrance before sunset. Yuze hurried back to the house and took some bluegrass medicine into the cloth bag, grabbed a few more seeds in his pocket, thinking that whenever he encountered danger, the current crop might be helpful. After the preparations were made, the two followed Jiaqing's guidance and advanced towards the forest behind the village. At the entrance of the forest, the trees are tall and dense, and the sun is almost completely covered by the branches and leaves. The air is filled with a damp earthy smell, and it is also filled with a hidden fishy atmosphere. Yuze couldn't help but beat the cold man and muttered in a low voice, no matter how good the place looks, it doesn't look like a good place. Choi Hao snorted coldly, pulled out the big knife on his back, and cut off the grass on the road with his hands. Don't waste, stay alert. The monsters in the forest will not wait for you to prepare for your mentality. Yuze swallowed, tightened the sword of the brave in his hand, and walked forward carefully behind Choi Hao. Before he walked for a long time, a slight vibration suddenly came from the ground. Then a huge magical beast appeared from the trees ahead, with a cow-shaped body, a spike full of spikes, a red eyes, and a fishy saliva dripping in his mouth. Spitched armored ball. Middle and high-level monsters, extremely strong defense. Choi Hao shouted softly and quickly took out his fighting posture. You retreat, I'll control it. Yuze instinctively stepped back a few steps, but looking at the big body of the thorn-armored beast, his heart slammed. This thing is more scary than yesterday's black fly wolf. Can Choi Hao do it alone? He gritted his teeth, took out a handful of seeds from his pocket, sprinkled it on the ground, and closed his eyes and silently said, "The blessing of the god of agriculture, I will give me some harm." In an instant, several vine plants emerged from the ground, all red and red, emitting a warm breath. Yuze was stunned and took off a leaf with his hands. When he touched his finger, he felt a scorching heat. "What is this? The pepper evolution version? Don't be stupid. Use your herbs to help me." Chuihao's voice interrupted his thoughts. At this time, he was fighting with the prickly armored beast. The big knife slashed the spike on the other party's back. The 4 sparks were soaring that they could not break the defense at all. Yuze quickly grabbed a handful of red vines and threw them at Chuihao. "Try this. You should be able to hurt it." Chuihao took the vine and quickly slapped on the blade. When the next knife was cut, the burning force of the vine exploded on the blade, and it directly burned a charred black on the back of the thorny armor. The demon was in pain, roared and rushed towards Chuihao. "Effective. Come again." Chuihao hurried away and shouted, his movements as sharp as a leopard. When the rain was gone, several red vines were grown and they were thrown to Chuihao with blue grass. The two attacked and drove the stinger-armored beast backwards. With the last stab, Chuihao directly slashed its neck and the demon fell to the ground. At the end of the battle, Chuihao gasped and turned to look at Yuze, with a little more conviction in his eyes. "No, your plants are a big help. How did this thing come out?" Yuze smiled and couldn't tell the secret of the blessing of the agriculture god, so he could only say, "God, I'm a professional in the field." Chuihao didn't ask much, just pointed, "Okay, with you here, the next road should be easier." At this moment, a sound suddenly echoed in Yuze's brain: kill the middle and high-level monsters and get 5 points of skill upgrade points, which can be used to improve one's own abilities or learn new skills. He was stunned and immediately responded. This should be the rule of the different world, similar to the experience value in a game. Improving ability? Yuze thought, and several options appeared in the brain: strength, endurance, agility, and magic perception. He hesitated for a moment and chose endurance. After all, both the fields and fighting require physical strength. In an instant, a warm current swelled all over his body, and he felt that his breathing was much smoother. "Let's go, don't be stunned." Chuihao patted his shoulder and continued to lead the way. Yuze followed behind, secretly counting in his heart, "It seems that this skill point is a good thing. If you have to fight a few more monsters in the future, it may be stronger." The two continued to go deeper into the forest, and encountered several waves of small-scale monsters on the way, all of which were solved neatly by Chuihao. Yuze was responsible for the help of plant vegetation, and his cooperation became more and more tacit. Just as they approached the entrance, a low chanting sound came from the front, and then a woman in a dark green robe appeared in the middle of the road, holding a bottle of purple-lighted medicine in her hand. "Who are you? Why did you enter my territory?" The woman's voice was cold, her eyes swept over the two people like a knife, and a dangerous breath came out from her body. Chuihao held the sword tightly and said to Yuze in a low voice, "Be careful, this woman is not simple, she may be of a magician." Yuze rushed to try to draw a peaceful and elegant atmosphere. "Don't misunderstand. We just passed by and looked for some traces to the forest, and there was no maliciousness." The woman heard it, her eyes softened slightly, looking at Yuze up and down, especially on the brave sword that was staying in his hand. "That sword, are you the holder of it?" Yuze was a little bit, and said with a hard head, "Yes, I just wanted to figure out what it is coming." "What do you know?" The woman was silent for a moment, and finally opened her mouth. "My name is Ihan, I live in this forest and specialize in drug learning. I have heard of the warrior sword, but I don't know the specific ones. However, I can help you as long as you agree not to destroy my experience." "Experience sight?" Chuihao's eyebrows. "Are you talking about this forest?" "Yes. I'm working on various magical medicines, and the plants and monsters here are my materials. If you can help me collect some rare materials, I can teach you how to adjust recovery medicine, which is useful for adventure." When Yuze heard this, his eyes lit up. "Restore the medicine? Okay. We need this." He thought to himself that although his herbs are effective, they are actually temporary and have limited results. If he can learn to adjust the medicine, his adventure will definitely be more stable. Although Cui Hao had some quarrels, but when he answered, he did not object, he just whispered, "Don't trust her too much. 9 out of 10 people like drug pharmacists have secrets." Next, Wei Han brought 2 people to her residence hut and taught Yuze's drug preparation skills. Yuze used his own blue light herb as the ingredient and successfully adjusted the first bottle of recovery medicine. After drinking it, the effect was more than twice as strong as taking the ingredient directly. "This is great." Yuze looked at the medicine bottle in his hand excitedly, feeling that he had left the perfect life of Shida plus adventure. Wei Han looked at his reaction and slighted on the corner of his mouth, "You have talent. If you can get rarer materials in the future, I can teach you a higher-level formula." Trade. Yuze made a decision, and he had already started to calculate how many strange plants in his heart, and he could get more knowledge of medicine. After learning the drug base, the 3 of them went to the entrance of the voyage together. It was a stone door half buried in the soil, with ancient runes engraved on it, and the patterns on the sword of the brave were like a 12. As soon as Yuze approached, the sword began to move slightly, as if he felt something. "It seems right, this is the sealed place," Wei Han said in a low voice, "but there may be magic traps inside, you need to be prepared." Cui Hao pushed open the stone door and walked in first, Yuze and Wei Han followed. Inside the shore is a dark corridor, with luminous crystals embedded in the walls, so you can hardly see the road clearly. After walking for a few steps, the ground suddenly moved, and then several blue beams of light shot out from the wall and came straight towards the 3 of them. "Hide!" Cui Hao roared and quickly fell to the ground. Yuze's reaction slowed down a beat and was almost hit by the beam. Fortunately, Wei Han pulled him. "This is a magic trap, specializing in the target." Wei Han's eyebrows quickly tweaked a bottle of medicine in his hand, and it was on the ground. The medicine liquefied into a thin layer of fog, barely weakening the power of the light beam. Yuze felt palpitations, and his brain suddenly flashed, "Wait, isn't the magic trap just the energy driving? My plants may absorb this energy." He took out a handful of seeds from his bag, sprinkled them on the ground, silently chanting the blessings of the god of agriculture. In an instant, several plants with transparent bodies grew out, shining like crystals. As soon as these plants appeared, they began to absorb the magic energy around them, and the attack power of the light beams was obviously weakened, and several of them were even directly swallowed by the plants. Is that okay?" Cui Hao was stunned and couldn't help asking, "What is the principle of your ability like this?" Yuze himself didn't understand it very much, so he smiled, "Maybe, plants are born with magic, right?" Wei Han looked at the transparent plants with a strange look, but he didn't say much, but just said in a low voice, "No matter what, take advantage of the current trap being weakened and walk forward." The 3 of them seized the opportunity and quickly passed through the corridor, but Yuze knew in his heart that his field skills seemed to be more simple than just for herbs. These plants can absorb magical energy and even affect magic traps, which may have a greater effect in future adventures. At the end of the corridor is a huge stone temple, with an ancient sacrificial fortress placed in the center, and a group of blue light balls floated on it, emitting the same breath as the sword of the brave. Yuze just stepped into the stone hall, and the sword started to move violently, as if he was called. "This light ball may be the secret of the sword of the brave," Wei Han said in a low voice, with a tight spot in his language, "but I have a bad feeling that getting close to it may cause bigger traps." Cui Hao held the sword tightly and his eyes were fixed. "No matter what danger is there, we have come to this point, there is no reason to retreat. Yuze, you prepare your plants and I'll explore the way." The rain was a little bit cold, and I felt a little nervous. He looked at the ball of light on the fort and felt that once the secret here was revealed, he might never be able to return to the day of a single pure field. But at the same time, he also felt an inexplicable sense of excitement, or perhaps, this is the charm of adventure. The 3 of them slowly approached the fortress, and a pressured breath filled the air, as if something would burst out at any time. Yuze held the sword of the brave, his palms were covered with sweat, and his brain was counted, No matter what was ahead, he had to keep his original intention. The field is the route, adventure is the road, and neither of them was missing. This chapter is over, about 3,800 words. Yuze held the sword of the brave, stepped cautiously into the center of the stone hall, staring at the group of blue light balls on the fort. The light ball emitted a strong energy wave, and the air seemed to be compressed, bringing a biting chill. His heart beats faster and faster, and the sword was shaking slightly in his hands, as if he was responding to the call of the light ball. This thing is definitely not simple. Cui Hao said in a low voice, holding a big knife, standing on Yuze's side, looking around, preparing for possible traps at any time. Wei Hanji stood in the back, holding a bottle of medicine emitting purple light in his hand, and a complex emotion flashed in his eyes. "Don't get close." Wei Han's voice was low, and he warned, "This light ball may be the energy core of the sword of the brave, or it may be a seal. I could feel an ominous force, like some ancient will." "Ancient will?" Yuze glanced at her with a brow and turned to look at her. "Are you saying, what dangerous thing is there in it?" "The coldness is a little cold, and the language is heavy. In the saying goes, the brave sword can not only wake up and protect the god, but may also be used to release the god of destruction. If this light ball is the key to the seal, then once we touch it, it may cause marijuana trouble." "The god of destruction?" Cui Hao snorted coldly, his eyes sharply. "It sounds like a ghost created by some people on purpose. However, whether it is a god or a demon, he would cut it down if he dared to cut it. Yuze, what do you think?" Yuze swallowed, his heart bulged. He originally wanted to live a life of Tian Tian, but where did he think about what kind of god of destruction to deal with? But looking at the ball of light on the fortress, and the trembling sword of the brave in his hands, he felt that he had been rolled into an unavoidable storm. "Don't rush to move first." He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. "Ihan, don't you understand medicine and magic? Is there any way to find out the bottom of this light ball?" Wei Hanxi hesitated for a moment, took out a small bottle of transparent liquid from it, and fell to the ground lightly. The liquid quickly turned into a thin layer of fog and flew towards the light ball. As soon as the fog touched the light ball, it made a sizzling sound, and then it was sucked in, and a black wave appeared on the surface of the light ball. "Not good." Wei Han's face changed and he quickly retreated. "There is indeed a problem in this light ball. There is a dark force sealed inside. The investigation just now may have shocked it." As the sound fell, the ground of the stone hall suddenly shook violently, and gaps broke out on the stone walls around the sacrificial fortification, and black smoke burst out from the gaps, and a rotten smell filled the air. Then, several figures in black robes walked out of the smoke, holding a bent staff in their hands and wearing a mask on their faces, emitting a cold killing. "The intruders, you dare to defeat an Ning who was sealed?" The man in black robes said to the sound of the sand, as if he was deeply slamming from his throat. "The holder of the sword of the brave, hand over the artifact, otherwise, your soul will be forever calm." "Take the artifact?" Cui Hao sneered, held the big sword tightly, and took out a fighting posture. "If you want to kill something, ask if my knife first." Although Yuze was nervous, Cui Hao stood up without retreating, and he stood up with his head in his arms. The sword of the brave in his hand was blue and bright. "I don't care who you are. I dug out this sword, so who should not take it away?" The man in black robe let out a low smile and swayed his staff. The black smoke on the ground instantly condensed into several monsters, and Zhanya danced his claws and rushed towards the three of them. At the same time, other men in black robes began to chant spells, and dark purple magic waves spread out in the air, making people breathless. "Be careful, this is the pioneer team of the dark power." Wei Han sniffed softly and quickly released a bottle of medicine. The medicine exploded in the air, forming a green shield, and barely suppressed several magic attacks. "They are believers of the god of destruction. Try to use the sword of the brave to break the seal and release their masters." "A believer of the god of destruction?" Yuze was stunned, and his brain quickly responded, "So, is the god of destruction sealed in this light ball?" "There's no time to explain." Cui Hao roared and had already penetrated into the monster group. The big sword danced like a wind. Each shot was accompanied by a thunderous force, and directly split a monster into 2.5. First solve these shatters, and then talk about the others. Yuze gritted his teeth, held the sword of the brave, and met another monster. The blue light flashed in the body of the sword, and as soon as the sword continued, the monster was directly dissipated into black smoke. But more monsters stormed out of the smoke, and cooperated with the magic attack of the man in the black robe, and instantly forced the three into the realm of danger. This won't work, there are too many monsters. Weihan used medicine to fight the magic, and shouted, Yuze, can your plants be sent to the field? Try it. Yuze took out a handful of seeds from the cloth bag, sprinkled it on the ground, silently chanting the blessings of the agriculture god. In an instant, several green light-filled plants broke out from the ground, and a warm energy radiated from the leaves, quickly scattering and dispersing, forming a small treatment area. Anyone who stands in the field will be able to maintain his wounds at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his physical strength is recovering rapidly. What is this? Cui Hao cut over a monster with a knife, turned around and saw the healing field, and widened his eyes in surprise. You are so stunning in your ability. Stop it, help me keep this area. Yuze gasped and took out a few bottles of just-made recovery medicine from his bag, and gave it to Cui Hao and Weihan. Drinking this will make it better. Cui Hao received the medicine and poured it into one mouthful. He felt his whole body's strength swelling, and his sword skills became even more powerful. At this moment, a spiritual light suddenly flashed in his brain, as if he had unlocked a potential energy. His body flashed, and the sword light turned into several shadows, and instantly shattered several monsters around him. Is the battle ever evolving? Cui Hao murmured in a low voice, with a little more excited in his eyes. New skill, sword shadow. Okay, I'll take on many monsters. With the support of the treatment area and recovery medicine, the three people gradually stabilized their feet. Yuze constantly planted new healing plants, expanded the area, and used the sword of the brave to deal with monsters. Although his fighting skills were not as good as Cui Hao, he could withstand a lot of pressure by relying on his recovery ability. Weihanjia focuses on the magic against the man in black robe, and uses medicine and spells in conjunction to force the opponent's attack. However, the number of men in black robe did not decrease, but as time went by, more enemies emerged from the smoke. The man in black robe sneered and opened his mouth, without aware. Do you think it can stop the god of destruction? The sword of the brave will eventually belong to us. It's fake to stop you from surrendering, it's true to chop you down. Cui Hao roared angrily, and the shadow of the sword exploded again, directly forcing several men in black robe to retreat. But the other party quickly reassembled, the magic attack became more violent, and cracks began to appear on the edges of the healing domain. If this continues, the territory will be almost impossible. Yuze gritted his teeth and his brain moved quickly. Suddenly, his spirit flashed and turned around and shouted to Cui Hao and Weihan, we will retreat. Go back to my farmland, where there are more crop support. Retreat? Cui Hao was stunned, obviously unwilling to give up, but when the treatment area was indeed about to collapse, he could only point, okay, listen to you. Weihan, cover us up. Weihan didn't say anything, but just released a bottle of explosive medicine, frying a piece of smoke, and slowly resisting the enemy's pursuit. The three of them quickly rushed out of the stone hall and ran along the way they came. The roars of the black-robed man and the monster behind him were not completely heard. When we ran out of the forest, it was already dark, and the purple moon was hanging high beside the sky, giving people an ominous premonition. Yuze carried the two people all the way back to his farmland. As soon as he stepped into the field, he immediately sowed a lot of seeds and silently recited the blessings of the farm god. In an instant, various magic crops grew from the fields, some of which radiate the rays of healing, some of which were long spiked to form a natural barrier, and some red vines scattered the heat, as if they could turn into flames at any time. This place is simply a natural castle. Cui Hao looked at the surrounding plants and couldn't help but sigh, you farmer is too lonely. Don't waste your time, help me keep the entrance. Yuze gasped, picked a few blue herbs from the fields, quickly adjusted several bottles of high-level recovery medicine, and divided them to the two. This is my floor plate. As long as there's crop support, we can continue. The man in black robe and the monster quickly chased the field, but as soon as he stepped into the area, he was trapped by the spike plants and red vines, and roared in pain. Yuze took advantage of the opportunity to expand the treatment area and covered the entire field with green light. The three people's injuries quickly recovered, and the fighting force also returned to the peak. It seems that your field is really a treasure. Wei Han said in a low voice. His eyes swept over the crops around him, and there was a strange look in his eyes. She turned to look at the man in black, and her voice suddenly became cold. These guys. I have known each other for a long time. They are from the Dark Clan, and the culprit in my garden that year. Do you have a grudge against them? Yuze was stunned, not expecting that Wei Han would pass like this. The coldness was on the head, holding the medicine bottle in my hand tightly, and there was a hint of hatred in my language. I live in the forest just to avoid them, and at the same time I study medicine for a chance to revenge. Since I met it today, I will not run away again. I want to join you and deal with these guys together. Welcome. Cui Hao grinned, and with a flash of sword, he cut over another monster. It's always a good thing to help. Yuze, you don't understand, right? Of course there is no problem. Yuze pointed and felt a little moved. Although he only wanted to grow fields, Cui Hao and Wei Han became his indispensable partners along the way. With their help, I may be able to really keep this field and even uncover the secrets of the brave drama. In the next battle, the three of them cooperated more tacitly. Cui Hao was responsible for the frontal storm, and the sword shadow kept rolling the enemy like crazy. Wei Han used medicine and magic to make the black-robed man's long attack, while providing various buffs for his teammates. Yuze guarded the middle of the field, constantly planting magic crops to maintain the healing field, and at the same time used the sword of the brave to attack the monsters that retreated. With the support of the fields, the pioneer troops of the Dark Force were no longer supported, and the man in the black robe in the head let out an angry growl. How evil! Do you think this is over? The will of the god of destruction cannot be picked, and we will soon be reborn. After saying that, he slammed his staff and turned into black smoke and retreated, and the surrounding area finally returned to peace. Yuze sat on the ground, sweating heavily. Looking at the damaged crops around him, his heart was both relaxed and a little distressed. This helps guy is really hard. Cui Hao put away his big knife, wiped his sweat, and turned to look at Yuze. But, relying on your fields, we have always been able to overcome this wave. The coldness is the point, and there is a solemnity in the language, but this is just the beginning. Since the Dark Clan is eyeing the brave sword, it will not give up easily. Next, they may send stronger troops, or even awaken the god of destruction. Wake the god of destruction. Yuze murmured, looking down at the brave sword in his hand. The blue light was still flowing on the sword, as if reminding him that the mission of this sword was not over. He was filled with mixed feelings, fearing the dangers of the future, and was also worried about some expectations. If he could defend the fields, protect the villages, or even change the fate of this world, would that be considered a kind of growth? No matter what, we have to be prepared. Cui Hao patted Yuze's shoulder and grinned. Your land is a good place, so we will be our big capital in the future. I will teach you a few tricks to avoid being bullied by monsters. I also learn about medicines, added Wei Han. The crops you grow are the best materials. If you can develop stronger medicines, you will be more confident in fighting the Dark Church. Yuze heard it, and his heart was warm, and he pointed at the head. Okay. Then let's work together to build this field into the strongest fortress. No matter whether the Dark Cult or the God of Destruction is, if you dare to come and fight, they will never come back. Under the night, the purple moon still hangs in a strange way around the sky, but the green light in the fields looks particularly warm. Yuze looked at the two partners beside him, and the land belonging to his own land. For the first time, he realized that the fields and adventure did not conflict. The fields were his roots, adventure was his way, and the two were combined, or perhaps they could create a legend belonging to him. In the forest far away, black smoke gathered invisibly, as if it was curling a bigger storm. but Yuze didn't notice it at this time. He just held the sword of the brave and began to count what new crops to grow tomorrow to challenge the future. This chapter is over, about 3,800 words. The night is dark, and the purple moon is high and the sky is emitting strange light, reflecting on the rainy farmland. At this moment, the surrounding area is no longer as calm as before, but is filled with a suppressed atmosphere. Far from the forest, black smoke rolled over, like endless darkness swallowing everything. Yuze stood in the middle of the field, holding the sword of the brave, and the blue light flowed on the sword, reflecting the green magic crops behind him. They are here. Chuihao stood beside Yuze, holding the sword tightly, his eyes as sharp as a knife, and his voice was low, "This time I'm not a small fight. The leader of the Dark Clan is on his own. We have to make the worst plans." Wei Han stood on the other side, holding a bottle of medicine emitting purple light in his hand, and his face was solemn. "According to the news I received, their head is Kazal, the supreme priest of the god of destruction, and has the ability to control the origin of darkness. If he successfully awakens the god of destruction, the entire mainland will be ruined." Yuze took a deep breath, and although he was a little scared, looking at the piece of land under his feet that he had broken up and the two partners around him, he gritted his teeth and said, "No matter who he is, if you dare to come to my floor, don't want to go back in a hurry. Let's keep here and we can never let them succeed." As the voice fell, the black smoke had approached the edge of the field, and then a tall figure walked out of the smoke. The man was wearing a long robe of a beetle, a pair of skull mask on his face, and a curved black staff in his hand. A crystal stone that was radiating evil spirits were embedded on the top of the staff. There were dozens of black-robed men following him, each of whom was scattering a powerful wave of dark magic, and a suffocating feeling of pressure was scattered in the air. "The owner of the brave sword." Kazal's voice was low and sandy, as if it was coming from the underground, full of disdain. "Do you think that by slandering your broken fields and a few snares can stop the god of destruction? Ridiculous. I may be able to make you die more happily after handing over the artifact. If you want to get a sword, step past my body first." Yuze did not retreat at all, and he lifted the sword of the brave. His sword body was bright, as if he was sharing the will with his. He turned his head and said in a low voice to Chuihao and Wei Han, "We act according to the plan. I am responsible for weakening their magic. Chuihao, you will find a chance to suddenly break out. Wei Han uses medicine to support him." "I understand." Chuihao grinned, and the sword flashed, and the war was in full swing. Wei Han silently pointed his head and quickly took out several bottles of medicine from the ground, preparing to answer any time. Kazal snorted coldly, lifted his staff, and a dark purple beam burst out from the black crystal, which rushed straight into the fields. At the same time, the man in black robe behind him began to chant spells, and countless dark touching hands emerged from the ground, squeezing towards the three of them like living things. "Come on." Yuze gritted his teeth and took out a handful of treasured seeds from his cloth bag. This was the ultimate crop seed he had carefully cultivated during this period, saying that it could release a territory that restrains magic. He scattered the seeds to the fields, closed his eyes and recited silently, "The blessing of the god of agriculture gives me the strongest power." In an instant, a dazzling green light burst out from the center of the field. Then a huge tree-shaped plant broke out from the ground. The trees were thick like mountains, and golden light flowed on the branches and leaves, emitting a sacred and ancient breath. The air around the tree began to distort, forming a huge territory. Any dark touch that stepped into the territory was instantly weakened and turned into black smoke and dissipated. "What is this?" Kazar's voice was filled with surprise, and he certainly didn't expect Yuze to get something like this. He swung his staff and tried to counterattack with dark magic, but the magic just touched the golden realm, as if it had been swallowed up, and its power was reduced. "Your magic is useless in this area." Yuze roared, taking advantage of the opportunity to slay the brave sword. The blue light turned into a sword and directly blocked a few close contacts. He turned his head and shouted to Chuihao, "Just now, fuck him." Chuihao could not wait any longer. When his figure flashed, the sword shadow exploded. The whole person turned into a shadow and rushed into the black-robed man's camp. Each sword was extremely accurate, and he attacked the enemy's weaknesses. Several men in black robe hadn't reacted yet, and were turned to the ground and turned into black smoke and dissipated. Looking for death? Khazar roared, and a huge dark light blew up to Chui Hao's mouth. However, Wei Han immediately released a bottle of medicine, and the medicine exploded in the air, forming a green shield, which barely suppressed the attack. Don't think you are the only one who can magic. Wei Han snorted coldly and released several bottles of medicine. Some of them released poisonous fogs after they exploded, causing the man in black to move violently, and some turned into flames, burning a dark touch. She fought and shouted, "Yuze, maintain the territory. Chui Hao, don't be too deep, leave some energy to deal with that big guy." The rain is at the same time, and the final crop release area is carefully controlled. At the same time, the blue light herbs are constantly picked from the fields, and the recovery medicine is quickly adjusted and the recovery medicine is given to Chui Hao and Wei Han. With the weakening of the territory and the support of medicine, the three of them kept their feet stable and started a pulling battle with the dark cult. However, Kazal's power exceeded expectations, and even under the pressure of the domain, his dark magic was still powerful. He sneered and said, "Do you think this little trick can trap me? Let you see the true power of the god of destruction." Speaking of his high-rise staff, the black crystal blew out a dazzling light, and then a huge gap broke out on the ground, and a terrifying breath burst out from the gap, as if some ancient and evil existence was awakening. Yuze felt nervous, and the voice of the farmer suddenly echoed in his brain, "Be careful. This is the projection of the will of the god of destruction. If you are completely awakened, the mainland will be dark. Can't let him succeed." Yuze gritted his teeth and shouted to Chui Hao and Wei Han, "We have to fight. Chui Hao, concentrate firepower to attack Kazal. Wei Han, help me delay those men in black robe, I will strengthen my territory." Chui Hao pointed his head, accelerated again, and the sword light rolled like a wild wind, and rushed Kazal away. The cold waves of the cold waves successively released several bottles of medicine, bursting, poisonous fog, and flames intertwined, and forced the support of the man in black robe. Yuze focused all his attention on the final crops, silently recited the blessings of the agriculture god, and injected all his spiritual power into it. "Give me a little stronger," he growled, sweating from the top, and finally the golden light of the crop suddenly burst, the area range instantly expanded several times, and the weakening effect of the dark magic became even stronger. Khazar's magic attack was even more devastating, and even the evil breath in the gap began to shrink. "You guy can actually do this." Khazar gritted his teeth and cut. Obviously he didn't expect that a small farmer could have such power. But he quickly sneered, "However, the will of the god of destruction has been awakened, and you can't stop it." He said that without observing the pressure of the territory, he forced himself toward the rain, and his staff turned into a long black spear and stabbed straight in. Yuze couldn't react in time and was about to be hit. Chui Hao suddenly rushed out of the side, and his big sword hit the long spear hard, and Mars were 4 times tightly suppressed the blow. "Your opponent is me." Chui Hao roared, and the sword shadow exploded again, exerting close combat with Kazal. While the two of them fought, the sword light and the dark magic intertwined, and a violent shock wave burst out. Yuze took the opportunity to retreat and quickly drank a bottle of recovery medicine. His brain moved quickly. It's not enough to rely on the pressure of the territory alone, so he must defeat him. He looked down at the sword of the brave in his hand, and the blue light was still flowing, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, a spiritual light flashed in his brain. "Yes, Mr. Jiaqing said that this sword can awaken and protect God, or maybe, this is the key." He closed his eyes, focused his mental power on the sword, and tried to establish a deeper connection with the sword. In an instant, a warm and vast force surged out of the sword, as if some ancient will was responding to him. Yuze was shocked and murmured, "Guardian God. If you really exist, help us now." The next second, the sword of the brave burst out with unprecedented light, and the blue light rose into the sky and entered the sky. Then, a golden light broke out in the sky, and a huge virtual shadow descended. It was a warrior wearing golden armor and holding a giant shield, emitting a sacred breath that was incomparable to Lombardy. "It's the guardian god." Wei Han was shocked, his voice filled with shock. Khazar saw the state, his face finally changed, and he roared, "Impossible! How could the sword of the brave be awakened and guarded the gods?" The guardian of God looked down at Yuze, and his voice sounded like thunder, "The holder of the brave sword, your pure heart and guardian will have won my recognition. I will help you to purify this darkness in the vast world." After speaking, the guardian god swayed the giant shield, and a golden wave of light rolled out. Wherever he passed, the dark touching hands in the man in black robe instantly turned into ashes, and even Khazar's magic was suppressed without any resilience. Yuze took the opportunity to shout, "Cui Hao, now!" Cui Hao was convinced, and the last blow of the sword light burst out. The sword shadow immediately hit Khazar's chest. The dark priest let out an unwilling roar, and then his body turned into black smoke and disappeared. At the same time, the gap on the ground began to close, and the projection of the will of the god of destruction made a low growl, and was finally sealed in the bottom. The light that guards God covers the entire field, the darkness is scattered, and a fresh breath spreads out in the air. Before the video dissipated, she whispered to Yuze, "The mission of the brave sword has been completed. Holder, choose the bar. Should you take it away, continue to protect the mainland, or seal it, and end all this?" Yuze looked at the sword in his hand, silent for a moment, and finally opened his mouth, "I choose the seal. I am not a real brave man, but just a farmer who wants to protect the fields and villages. This ends the mission of the sword, let it sleep peacefully." The light of the sword body gradually dimmed, and then turned into a ray of light, which did not enter the deep field and disappeared. At the same time, the voice of the farmer god was heard in the sea of rain, "You have made a wise choice, mortal. Your fields will be blessed by me forever and become the holy land of the vast land." At the end of the battle, the fields were calm. Cui Hao put away his big knife, let out a breath, and patted Yuze on the shoulder, "It's very hard, farmer. Your place is such a miracle." Wei Han also showed a rare smile and said lightly, "I didn't expect that we could really do it. The Dark Clan was destroyed, and my revenge was also reported. Thank you, Yuze." Yuze grinned and wiped his sweat, "Don't thank me, we are partners, of course we will bear it together. But seriously, I just want to go back and sleep now, and this battle has almost cut my waist." A few days later, a wedding was sent from the village. The traces that Cui Hao gained in the battle finally helped him find his lost family. For many years. His sister had been avoiding the pursuit of the dark sect in another village, and now she was finally gathering. He took his sister back to the village, decided to settle down and continue to protect the land. Wei Han also chose to stay. She put aside her past hatred and built a drug workshop on the edge of the village to study new drugs with Yuze's magic crops to help villagers and adventurers. Her smile was much more than before, as if she finally found her spiritual retreat. The fields of rain became the holy land of the whole world due to the eternal blessing of the god of agriculture. There were countless adventurers and travelers coming to visit, some seeking healing, some learning planting skills, and even chanting poets wrote a genre for Yuze, calling him the field brave man. The village was becoming more and more prosperous under the protection of Yuze. The old man Jiagang smiled so hard that he couldn't hold his mouth. He said to everyone, "Look, this is the hero of our village. There is a legend in the genus of the genus. Who can compare with it?" And Yuze himself has lived the simplest life. Every morning, he is busy in the fields, planting various magic crops. In the evening, he sits in front of the wooden house, watching the sunset and listening to the laughter of the children in the village. Occasionally, Cui Hao would come to him to learn how to sword skills, and Wei Hanjia would send him a newly made medicine. The three of them sat together, chatting about their future plans, and laughing in the fields. One evening, Yuze stood alone on the field, looking at the horizon far away, and felt mixed feelings in his heart. He recalled the moment he traveled to the strange world, and he just wanted to be a leisurely farmer and live a peaceful life. However, fate pushed him on a path full of trials, allowing him to grow from an ordinary man to a hero who guards the village and the mainland. Sure, Tian is my route, adventure is my way. He murmured in a low voice, holding an ordinary head in his hand, and a satisfying smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Now, these two roads are finally combined into one. The sun's remaining vicissitudes are on the fields, and the golden light intersects with green crops, as if complaining about an ordinary and great legend. Yuze turned around and walked towards the wooden house. His back was stretched and firm under the sun. He knew that in the days ahead, no matter what kind of rain, this field and village would be his eternal Hong Kong. The final chapter is over, about 3,750 words.